Last but not least, we are going to talk about followership. There's understanding your followers is important as a leader because every great leader starts off as a great follower. You By being a great follower, you kind of learn how to be a good leader, and also you need to, as a leader, remember the followers. I went to a Jason Mraz conference concert years ago. He's a great entertainer, by the way. But at his concert, several times he said how grateful he was for us, his fans, so that he could have the life that he has. It's so easy once you're in a leadership role to kind of forget what it's like to be a follower. But Jason Mraz hadn't forgotten that, and it's you cannot be a leader if you don't have followers. But also that sometimes the best way to lead is to let someone else lead, which means then you have to step into the followers role. And so you kind of never stop being a follower. You're never done being a follower. You just might be a follower in certain situations and a leader in others. Something else that you need to keep in mind when it comes to your followers and understanding them is that they will determine whether or not everyone else will follow you. If a follower doesn't like you, then they might make it difficult for everyone else to follow you. And we'll see examples of that in a little bit later. Sometimes we're typically, being the leader is kind of the cool thing to do. It makes you feel good to have the power, but it's not the most, it might not be the most powerful position. Being a follower of a leader, you have a lot of power over whether or not that leader is accepted. But something a follower is not. They're not passive. They're not supposed to follow without questioning. It might be nice for the leader, but that's not the ideal situation. And they don't just follow like some predetermined vision. They're supposed to, get ownership of it. And that's your job as a leader, is to help them become effective followers, help them take initiative, ask questions if something does seem wrong, to help kind of guide the leader's decisions, especially when it's related to the followers and what their outcomes are going to be. Help the leader, but not threaten their authority. A lot of followers will do that sometimes, where they want to be in charge, and so they will threaten the authority of the leader. Confident, competent, and motivated. An effective follower is a future leader. That's what we want all of our followers to do, because remember, as the semesters progress, we've talked about how we want our leaders, or our followers, to become empowered and then therefore become leaders of the future. So there are follower types. You'll see here a list, and we're going to look at a visual that makes it a little easier to remember. But there's the sheep. They're passive. They always require external motivation because they just have no motivation, no commitment, constant supervision. I think of this as the kind of person who's always on their phone and just not paying attention. They're not like fighting against it, but they're just not with it. You have to constantly kind of bring them back in. There's the yes person. And this is the ideal, easy follower, because they just do as they're told, super excited about very committed to the leader and the goal of the group, don't ever question anything, they just do what they're told, and are very, very, very loyal to the leader. Very nice as a leader to have yes people, although that's not the ideal. The pragmatics or the survivors, these are the people that will not go against the grain. They won't do something until they see other people doing it, because they don't want to create controversy. They don't want to do anything different from anyone else. So they're often very much in the background of the group, because they just kind of wait till everyone else acts and then they act. The alienated, this is the opposite of what everybody wants. This is the person who's negative, arms folded, not interested in anything the leader wants to do, constantly questioning the authority of the leader, thinks that they should be the rightful leader, very critical of the leader and everybody else who's in the group. They're just negative. Nobody likes the negative Nancy or the Johnny Raincloud, as the terms are put. That's the alienated. And there's the effective followers. This is the ideal. This is what we want. This is what we're trying to create. They're positive, but they're active. They're involved. They're doing stuff, but they also are independent thinkers. So if there's a new idea, they'll brace it. Or if there's something that maybe could be changed, they will try to improve it. So they don't just blindly accept decisions. They evaluate them and make the decision themselves. They take ownership of it. The cool thing about an effective follower is that they can succeed without the presence of a leader. I once last year for the conference My conference coordinator was so good at being an effective follower that I could just say, I'm not coming to class, and if you could run it for me, that would be great. And she did. She did a fantastic job because she was an effective follower and therefore was able to be the leader. You can see it here. There's the alienated followers. They are passive, as in they don't want to act, but they're independent thinkers. So they don't want to do it, but they're independent thinkers about it. Versus the sheep, which is also passive. They don't want to do anything, but they are dependent. They're told what to do. The effective follower is critical thinking and independent, but they are also active, so they're doing stuff. Versus the yes person, who's active as well, but they're totally dependent, not an independent thinker. Versus the survivors are kind of in the middle. They just kind of wait till everyone else acts. So they're kind of critical thinking in that way, but they're also dependent on the group. They're passive in that they wait till everyone else acts, but that they do act. So they're kind of in the middle of all that. So that's a good visual for how that works. All right, moving on, the roles of a follower, regardless of what follower type they are, the roles of a follower are obviously to complete the task given, question decisions if they don't seem right, make sure that they're, if it doesn't feel right, then you shouldn't do it, and so you need to speak up when that happens. I'm always very proud when I see my students do that. And then you also, and I mentioned this before, role of a follower is to create feelings and opinions about the leader. You really have a lot of control about how accepted the leader will be as a follower. So the leader-follower relationship is very important. If you don't have a relationship, your followers will not really follow you. I've mentioned several times through this semester, building relationships of trust. That you want them to trust you. You want to make sure that you know your people, that you know things about them, that you have a relationship, so that you can know them. You can ask them how their life is, how things are going, how the group is going. Be able to really get a picture from their side on how things are going. Leaders have to be committed to their followers. They are, like Jason Mraz, they are the reason you're there. You cannot be a leader without a follower. So you sometimes need to make sacrifices in order to gain their support. If you don't want to do it, then don't force them to do it, and don't impose on them anything. That you should inspire them to want to do it. Don't impose it on them or force it upon them, and then be open to feedback. I received some feedback just a couple of days ago from one of my students, and I'm grateful to have received it because I didn't realize I'd been doing something that made them feel uncomfortable. It's good to get feedback as leaders, and if they don't receive that feedback well, then that's because that's an improvement they need to make, and you as a leader need to be open to receiving feedback. You can also determine the follower influence. Sometimes their status will determine how you're going to treat them. Sometimes some followers don't really have much influence. Others will have more influence. It kind of depends on your relationship with them and how they work in the group. Like the survivors typically don't have as much influence because they don't speak up, versus the effective followers and the alienated. Followers are in a power position. They can force change. They can be self-managers or risk takers. They can also be sabotagers, which is what we don't want. When it comes to followers, education and experience is a big part of that. They'll be able to be a better follower, and you'll be able to have more influence over them depending on their skill set and their education. If they need more guidance, then you'll have more influence over them because you're going to be controlling a lot more. As followers, you need to make sure you give them a locus of control, something they can be in charge of, either internal inside of them, like their opinions or whatever, or external, their actions. But keep in mind that no matter where you are, if you're in a leadership role, you're definitely always a follower somewhere. In some aspect of our lives, we're always going to be leaders and followers. In my opinion, and this is from a text as well, your relationship with your leaders is going to also be kind of mirror your relationship with the other followers that you see. And it's going to affect how your followers treat your customers, your participants, and your volunteers. Relationships are really what it comes down to. Your followers are people that you are bound as a leader to learn to love.